I'm Sadie Rogers, 25 years old, and my mom has always played favorites, treating my younger sister like royalty while I scraped by on my own. I'd built up my savings working as a remote programmer in Denver, grinding through late nights to afford a decent life. But when my sister racked up a $15,000 in debt from reckless spending, my mom showed up at my door demanding I cover it. "Family sticks together," she said, her voice sharp, like it was my duty to bail them out again. I refused flat out, telling her I'd earned that money the hard way and wouldn't hand it over. Her face twisted in anger, and she stormed off, slamming the door behind her. That night, while I slept, she snuck back in with the spare key I'd forgotten to take back. The next morning, my phone buzzed with bank alerts. My credit card drained. Savings wiped out on payments for my sister's mess. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, but I stayed silent. No calls, no confrontation, just plan my next move. What happened after exposed their scheme, turned the tables, and left them facing consequences they never saw coming. If you've ever felt trapped by family demands, you won't believe how this unfolds. Drop in the comments what's the wildest thing a family member has demanded from you. Let's see how many can relate. That morning, I woke to my phone buzzing with bank alerts. I grabbed it, still half asleep, and logged into the app. My credit limit was maxed out, the $15,000 gone in overnight charges. The transactions listed payments to credit companies, all tied to my sister's debts. My stomach twisted as I scrolled through them, each one a punch to the gut. How had this happened? I remembered the spare key I'd given Mom years ago, the one she still had. She must have come back after our argument. My hands steadied as I dialed her number, the anger building with each ring. She picked up, sounding casual, like nothing was wrong. "Morning, Stacy. Sleep well." I cut straight in, voice low but firm. "You took my credit card and drained my savings for Misty's debts." Silence stretched. Then she sighed, not even denying it. "You were being stubborn. Misty needed help. And family steps up. You'll get over it once you see her back on track." Her tone dripped with that familiar manipulation, like she was doing me a favor. I gripped the phone tighter, the betrayal hitting hard. "That's theft, Mom. You broke into my place." She laughed lightly, brushing it off. "Don't be dramatic. It's not like I stole from a stranger. Cancel the charges if you're so upset. But the payments are already processed." I hung up before she could twist it more, my mind racing. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was years of favoritism boiling over. I needed advice. So I texted Lori Patterson, my best friend since college. We met at a coffee shop downtown, the Rocky Mountains visible through the window. She listened as I explained the alerts and the call, her eyes widening. "That's insane, Stacy." She crossed a line. I nodded, the shock fading into resolve. Lori leaned forward. "Practical as always, don't react yet. Gather evidence first. Security footage from your building. Those transaction details." Then hit her with facts. We spent the next hour planning, her words grounding me. By the time we left, I felt ready to fight back. Step by step, back at my place, I pulled up the building's security app on my laptop. The footage from last night showed Mom slipping in through the side door around midnight, her face half hidden under a hood, then leaving 30 minutes later with what looked like a small bag. My pulse quickened as I saved the clip, the grainy image making it all too real. This was solid proof she'd entered without permission. Next, I dug into my email for the bank statements, printing out the transaction logs with timestamps matching the video, each charge linked directly to Misty's creditor accounts. No ambiguity there. I even found old texts from Mom over the past week pressuring me about the debt. One reading, "Misty's in deep. You can't let her drown." Those would tie her motive together. With the files organized in a folder, I felt a surge of control. The initial shock from the call giving way to sharp focus. Lori stuck around, helping me label everything methodically. "This is airtight," she said, her voice steady as she cross-referenced the dates. We wrapped up by early afternoon, my desk cluttered with papers and the laptop screen frozen on Mom's exit. That's when I decided to loop in my dad, Curtis Roberts. He'd moved to a small town outside Denver after the divorce, keeping his distance from Mom's chaos. I hadn't talked to him much lately, but he knew her patterns better than anyone. His phone rang twice before he answered, his tone warm but cautious. "Stacy, everything all right?" I laid it out quick, skipping the emotional buildup. "Dad, Mom used my credit card to pay $15,000 of Misty's debts without asking. I have footage and records." He went quiet, then exhaled slowly. "That's her all over again. Remember Grandpa's will? He set up that trust with a clause for exactly this. Any fraud against family means forfeit of shares." My interest peaked. I'd heard whispers about it years back, but never dug in. "Tell me more," Curtis explained over the next 20 minutes. His words measured. Grandpa had divided his estate evenly, but buried in the fine print was protection against financial harm to kin. Designed after spotting Mom's habits during his last years, her share sat at $100,000, Misty's at $45,000, both locked until certain ages if convicted. It all shifted to the remaining beneficiaries, me and the cousins. As secondary trustee, I could enforce it. File with the court once you have charges, he added. I'll email the documents tonight. Hanging up. A plan solidified in my head. Lori caught my eye, nodding. That's your leverage. Pair it with the evidence and they can't wiggle out. We reviewed the trust papers he sent later that evening, her questions sharpening my strategy. By nightfall, the folder felt like a weapon, ready for the next push. With the folder ready, I headed to the local police station in downtown Denver. The building stood stark against the mountain backdrop, and I walked in with Lori by my side for support. We asked for the fraud unit, and soon, Detective Teresa Wong met us in a small interview room, her badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. She listened intently as I laid out the sequence, starting with the unauthorized charges and showing her the printed statements. This looks serious, she said, flipping through the pages, her expression turning professional. I played the security footage on my phone, zooming in on Mom's figure entering and exiting my apartment. Teresa nodded, taking notes. Clear entry without permission timed with the transactions. That's strong. She asked about family ties and I explained the favoritism, how Mom always bailed Misty out while leaving me to fend for myself. Lori chimed in occasionally, confirming details from our planning session. By the end, Teresa assured us she'd open a case, request full bank records and schedule interviews. We'll contact your mother soon, she added, handing me a case number. Leaving the station, a mix of relief and nerves washed over me, the weight of escalation hitting full force. 2 days later, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It was Jeremy Vaughn, my sister's fiance, sounding tense. Stacy, we need to meet alone. I agreed to a neutral spot, a park near the Platte River, where joggers passed by under the clear sky. He arrived looking disheveled, hands in his pockets, and sat on a bench beside me. I didn't know about the card, he started, avoiding my eyes. Misty said you'd loan the money for her debts, that it was family help. I pressed him, and he admitted overhearing the police visit at their apartment. They questioned her yesterday. She confessed everything to me after the story spilled out. Misty had scoped my place weeks earlier during a visit, noting where I kept financial stuff. She'd pushed Mom to take the card, arguing I'd never agree outright. Texts between them planned the timing, even joking about my passive nature folding under pressure. Jeremy showed me screenshots on his phone, dates matching my footage. This isn't who I thought she was, he said, voice breaking. He had ended the engagement that morning, returned the ring amid her pleas. She's devastated, but I can't marry someone who'd scheme like that. I forwarded the screenshots to Teresa right there, strengthening the case. Jeremy left with a nod, wishing me luck. And I sat alone for a moment, the river's flow mirroring my swirling thoughts. This revelation shifted everything, turning Misty from beneficiary to active plotter. The courthouse in Denver loomed ahead as I arrived early for the hearing. I took a seat in the back row, the wooden benches creaking under the weight of anticipation. Mom and Misty entered with their lawyer, Philip Dawson, both dressed in conservative outfits that couldn't hide their strained expressions. Uncle Marvin trailed behind, his face set in determination, clearly there to play mediator. The judge called the case, and the prosecutor outlined the charges: unauthorized use of credit card leading to $15,000 in fraudulent payments. Teresa stood by presenting the evidence. We'd compiled the footage, texts, bank logs. Mom shifted uncomfortably as the video played on a screen, her nighttime visit undeniable. When it was time for Philip stepped forward. Your Honor, my clients wish to enter guilty pleas under the agreement. The judge peered over her glasses. Proceed with allocution. Mom went first, her voice barely above a whisper. I accessed my daughter's apartment without consent, took her credit card, and made payments on my other daughter's debts, knowing she hadn't approved. The admission hung in the air, her shoulders slumping as murmurs rippled through the sparse audience. Misty followed, eyes downcast. I assisted by identifying where she kept her cards during a prior visit, and I knew the funds were taken improperly. Her words cracked, the courtroom silence amplifying her discomfort. Uncle Marvin rose during a break, approaching me in the hallway. Stacy, this has gone far enough. Drop it for the family's sake. I shook my head unmoved. They chose this path. He pressed on, arguing about healing and forgiveness, but his pleas fell flat against the facts. The judge denied his informal intervention, ruling it irrelevant. Back in session, she accepted the 3 years probation each, 200 hours community service, full restitution within 30 days, and mandatory counseling. Fail any term, and it's jail. Mom and Misty nodded, the reality sinking in as they signed the papers. Philip whispered to them, his strategy crumbling. Leaving the building, I caught Uncle Marvin's defeated glance, his attempt to salvage things ending in failure. The day's events sealed their accountability, the public record now etched with their actions. A week after the hearing, I met Curtis at his place on the outskirts of Denver. He had the trustee paperwork ready, his small home filled with books on estate law. We reviewed the clause in Grandpa's will, ensuring every detail matched the conviction. This triggers the forfeit, he confirmed, signing as co-trustee. I filed the notice with the court that afternoon, the clerk stamping it efficiently. The process would take about 60 days, but the intent was clear. Mom and Misty's shares would shift to me and the cousins for financial harm to family. Curtis drove me back, his silence heavy with the family's fracture. "You did what you had to," he said finally. I waited for the ripples. Mom called a few days later, her voice edged with desperation. "Stacy, Philip says the trust is in jeopardy. We need to talk." I kept it brief. The clause applies. She begged for reconsideration, promising changes, but I ended the call. Misty texted sporadically. Vague apologies mixed with pleas for mercy. I ignored them, focusing on my routine. 2 months passed and the administrator's letter arrived, forfeit approved. Mom's $180,000 and Misty's $45,000 redistributed. The check for my share landed soon after. $140,000 deposited securely. The fallout hit them hard. Mom's employer ran a background check for her renewal certification and let her go. Setting the criminal record, she scrambled for part-time gigs. Her savings depleted from legal fees. Misty faced worse creditors anew, and with probation restricting travel, job options shrank. She applied for loans to cover restitution, but high interest rates at 23% trapped her in a cycle, payments stretching years. Uncle Marvin reached out once, admitting the intervention failed. "They're struggling, Stacy," I replied simply. "Consequences." Lori and I grabbed coffee weekly, her support steady as I rebuilt. The money stayed untouched, a buffer for my future. Mom and Misty's world narrowed, probation meetings and service hours filling their days. Isolation growing as relatives distanced themselves. Their choices echoed back, reshaping everything without a path to reversal. Months later, I blocked every contact from them. No more voicemails pleading for understanding. No texts weaving excuses about hardship. The silence brought clarity. A quiet space in my Denver apartment where I could focus on what came next. Lori and I started hiking the trails near Boulder every weekend, her energy pulling me through steep inclines and winding paths. "You've earned this freedom," she'd say, passing a water bottle at the summit. Those outings rebuilt my stamina, both physical and mental, turning exhaustion into steady progress. At work, I pitched a new project to my team, a software tool for remote monitoring that landed a promotion and a raise. The extra income let me upgrade my setup, adding a second screen and noise-canceling headphones for uninterrupted coding sessions. Curtis visited once a month. Our dinners simple but meaningful, grilled steaks and talks about his retirement plans. He'd share stories of Grandpa's business savvy, reminding me where my drive came from. "He'd be proud," Curtis said one evening, clinking glasses. I nodded, feeling the truth of it, with the inheritance funds invested in a high-yield account. I set up an emergency buffer and even took a short trip to the Grand Canyon, the vastness below mirroring the expanse in my life. Misty's updates trickled through mutual acquaintances, her call center job barely covering basics, probation check-ins draining her time. Mom downsized to a studio near the mountains, her certification loss forcing her into odd jobs like data entry. They navigated their isolation, relatives fading as the record lingered. Lori suggested therapy for me, not to heal old wounds, but to process the shift. Sessions helped frame the lesson: boundaries aren't walls, they're foundations. Family ties thrive on mutual respect, not one-sided demands. When manipulation erodes trust, cutting ties preserves your core. For anyone watching, recognize the signs: early unmet expectations, guilt trips, endless favors. Stand firm, build your path, and let consequences teach what words can't. True strength lies in choosing peace over obligation.